obviously understand COVID's devastating impacts on our public health, on the lives of our fellow Americans, and on the economy. And so 71% believe that's now sensible. But look at what happens with sort of the ways that fear and anxiety have sort of replaced each other, almost a little bit like waves crashing on a shore. There was first a fear of a global recession. There was fear of ventilator shortages. There were 3 subsequent major fears of new waves of coronavirus, which became to be self-evident, and a lot of different things. The main headline I want to say, without getting into too much detail, is that we're seeing for the first time in 2 weeks a diminishment of fear in society, with some notable exceptions in some places. One is sort of the disapproval of the vaccine rollout ticked up ever so slightly. We think that was a function last week because of the weather across the United States, but we're starting to see some good news on this front. The major thing that we're tracking is sort of this consumer comfort index. And this is something we've been, again, tracking back to March of 2020. We just ask Americans, would you feel comfortable doing this? And you can still see it, that orange bar on the bottom. This is the challenge to the economy, right? And also the sort of the boon to a lot of the digital acceleration we've already seen, which is that people are supplanting traditional physical activities with digital and virtual, clearly. But look at a couple of these things. You know, among Americans that are still not comfortable, half of over Americans are still not comfortable traveling on a plane at 52%, taking public transportation at 54%, or attending a large concert or sporting event at 58%. Now, we imagine that the more that vaccine rates rise, the more that neutral bar will start to emerge, and people will become more comfortable sort of venturing out. But I think it's really important to understand the economic impacts here really briefly. There's really a tale of sort of 2 COVID economies. For most people, they haven't felt like they've been affected. 50% of Americans, in fact, say, you know what, it's basically neither affected my finances one way or the other. And 17% have said it's actually had a positive impact. And there's about 1/3 of Americans that have really felt this negative impact in a huge way. And so as a result, you know, we've asked lots of questions like, how would you describe how you're handling the negative impact? And so there's been a lot of emphasis on savings, on sort of more diligence around finance. But this is really telling, I think, for sort of roughly 1/3 to a half of Americans that have been impacted. You can see in the green their answers of very or somewhat severe to very personal and stressful financial situations, right? From having lost income, accumulating debt, missing a bill payment, skipping out on retirement savings, et cetera. So that's just a data point for us to think about as we're thinking about the recovery, which is sort of understanding that this is a very uneven recovery, and we need to sort of, you know, cater our sort of consumer marketing and branding appeals accordingly. Really good news, though, there is massive pent-up demand for a roaring back half of the year. We have been gathering and seeing this continue to almost build and gather, and it like on the verge of exploding. But Americans really want their life back, and the longer this is drug on, the more people are getting anxious. So a lot of FOMO going on, a lot of desire to get back out there. Most notably, us being social creatures, it's gathering with our friends and family, dining out, shopping in stores, going to church, you know, getting back into the things that we did, and a big push on spending on the right, particularly with regards to vacation and traveling. We're doing a lot of different work in this sector and seeing a lot of really sort of back half planning on vacations, as well as other things that Americans have sort of denied themselves, like buying new clothes and cars and things like that. I want to hit this real quickly. Really importantly, that we've been tracking the vaccine sort of acceptance ever since the first notice that Moderna and Pfizer were bringing these out in sort of April of last year, and the vaccine race was on. And at that time, 73% of Americans said that they would actually take the vaccine. Fast forward to the election season, the vaccine becomes a political football, and we see that the rates went way down. There was only about 58% as of November 7th after the election that said that they were likely to take the vaccine. Lately, over the last couple of weeks, it's sort of gone back and forth. As of this past weekend, 68% of Americans say they're likely to get the vaccine, 32% not likely, but encouragingly, it's dropping among all major demos in terms of the resistors. The percentage of not likely are continued to sort of decline. But this is really important. I think we cannot kind of talk about people not getting the vaccine as anti-vaxxers. That's a real misnomer. There's a lot of legitimate questions that people have, including 55% of those who say that they're not likely to get a vaccine, saying they're worried about the side effects. And just notice, for example, the multicultural polls that really drive sort of a cultural context to resistance of this. For example, look at among Black Americans, they don't trust the government to make it safe. So with that context, we are seeing this as not only a public health challenge, it's actually a social challenge of really earning the trust among all Americans across our communities. When you look at data like this, which I won't get into all the detail, you can see that Black Americans have mistrust, systemic mistrust of the healthcare system, another aspect of the systemic racism that Black Americans have faced that result in sort of the barriers to accepting the vaccine. But regardless, there are psychic baggage that comes with the loss of 500,000 lives and all of the dislocation. So we sort of see three main trends that are going to continue into next year as Americans sort of dig their way out of this. And this includes sort of the no contact lifestyle. This has become very, very simple to Americans. They see it as safe. They're very satisfied with online shopping. 77% is a really robust number. And they're also using far more different tools like customer chatbots. They're very interested in using contactless commerce, and 6 out of 10 have found it very easy to do so. Second bucket, space is a luxury good. This is physical, but it's also virtual. That people really want room to navigate, and that's going to have an impact on retail when you go back into physical environments, which we'll talk about. And then it's really important, I think, about safety as a customer journey, and you can see that really in the evidence of our shoppers. Not to say that consumers don't miss the experience of shopping. There is a lot of what's to miss about it, but I think what's important on the right-hand side is what they've done to supplant that, right? There's far more acceleration of behaviors like relying on online reviews or chatbots or video reviews. All those things have become sort of ways in which people have sort of cleverly sort of supplanted and done their own MacGyver to sort of, replicate the experience of shopping physically. And, they give the industry high marks for doing their best at digitally adapting to consumer needs. We see high numbers in the high 70s into the 60s across a range of different sectors when asked how good or poor of a job have these industries done in digitally adapting their products and services. So again, a far degree of understanding that business has done a pretty good job of adapting. And here's my last slide. Post-COVID, consumers really see a hybrid of digital and in-person services across categories. That extends to shopping, where they're seeing sort of, when asked the question, which of the following would you prefer to do? The by and large shopping is going to be hybrid at almost 70%. The gym at 62%. More hybrid is sort of cutting into that as our virtual workouts, almost 20%. School, the same sort of situation where there's going to be a blended mix, and then clearly in healthcare. So sort of blended is the way to go as we sort of think of the future.